Hello, everyone. It is 5:30, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Welcome to our third I-O professional panel. This week, we're going to have a focus on DEI and HR. My name is Hannah Dion, and I am the Vice President of the Houston I-O Psychology Network. And this panel session is co-hosted by Kale Fellenstein. You can go ahead and introduce
Hello.
yourself if you'd like.
Yeah, so I'll be stepping in for kind of Brianna today. She had an event that she couldn't make it to, so I just want to say I'm very thankful for all of our panelists here today, taking time out of their busy lives to come and illuminate some knowledge about HR and DEI and I/O in general. So really appreciate it.
Yes, we really look forward to hearing from you all. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Chantal Ramirez to start us off. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Give me a second. Let me share my screen because it's finally working. Okay. Please let me know. Can everybody see my screen?
Looks good.
Okay, good. So my name is Chantal Ramirez. I will be talking about my career in I/O, obviously, as it has gone through these years. This is just a brief agenda. So why industrial organizational psychology, at least on my part? Funny enough, it's a story. So once I finished my bachelor's degree, I was going to go into clinical psychology. That's what my interest was. However, at the university where I applied to, they only accept 50 people, and I was literally like 51. So they gave me two choices. They told me counseling or industrial organizational psychology. I was not interested in counseling at all. So I decided, let's go for I/O psychology. I had no idea what it was, honestly, no idea. Most people we all probably speak to and we tell them what we do, they have no idea what we do. And I didn't at that time. However, as I went through my classes, through the semesters and whatnot, I ended up loving it, loving it, loving it, loving it. Especially since how diverse and how many branches and areas you can work in within this area, this field. So my bachelor's degree is in psychology. I was in Puerto Rico. My master's in industrial organizational psychology is from Carlos Albizu University in Puerto Rico as well. Now my PhD is in human services, though, from the same university, but the campus here in Doral. And I live in Florida, in southern Florida, close to Miami. So as you may know, Miami is very, very hot right now. So my past work experience, I wanted to focus, I've mostly worked recruitment and assessment development within industrial organizational psychology within I/O. So prior to what I do now, I was a senior assessment analyst at a college. However, what I did over there is we developed, administered, validated, scored different types of tests for police departments here in Miami-Dade and Broward as well. So I've worked with a lot of different police departments. So I've mostly worked public sector, honestly. So it's definitely interesting learning about, for example, for an in-basket, what's the typical documentation or typical scenario. I've done also what we call strategic planning exercises for higher levels like lieutenant, captains. It definitely gives you a view of a job. I think that's one of the things I love about I/O, the jobs you can learn about that you never had any clue what it involved until you're actually involved in it, whether it's work-wise or research or whatnot. So not only that, I also have prepared requests for proposals for different projects. I've actually also worked with Warwick, Rhode Island, and with their fire department as well. So I've worked with quite a few different police departments. Before that, I was a recruiter, just your basic entry level, like reviewing, evaluating resumes for future, for potential candidates for different positions, and then recommending them to the companies. And I also worked for a very large telecommunications company over there in Puerto Rico. I was a human resources coordinator. There, I did many things. I helped out with interviews. I validated actual interview questions. I did the full onboarding, the full recruitment process, from posting on job boards all the way to onboarding somebody and everything in between. The interview, the job offer, everything. So like I said, I've mostly worked assessments and recruitment during my career. Now, my current experience, my current work experience, I am a senior human resources manager at Miami-Dade County, which is 24,000 employees. I currently work in the testing and validation section. So once again, I create, we validate, we administer, and we score examinations for people coming into the county, and also promotionals for like fire rescue, corrections, and the police department. And everything in between. So the bread and butter of for what I do is reliability and validity. I know we all know what that is. That is so crucial. And at the end of the day, that's what you need to make sure, because my job is to ensure that all these exams are legally defensible. If I ever were to be called to court, I need to say where, why, when, everything regarding an exam, and as to why it happened the way it happened. And not only that, a lot of things that are escalated, a person complaining about their scores, or somebody else complaining about the process. It's all handled by me. So that's also something you definitely need to learn how to manage, at least if you're working testing. I've also, and intermittently still do actually, work as recruitment manager over central human resources. So every department in the county has its own human resources, but there's the large one, which is basically the final level of review and approval. And I oversee at times that area as well. Many, many jobs in the county. I make sure that the openings are open. They're being posted as is, as they should be. If a department has a question about, for example, oh, why was this person not qualified for the job? That's something I tell my specialists, you need to learn how to explain to them why this person is not qualified for a certain job. Also, a crucial thing for them is Googling people's resumes, because in the requirements for the job, it may appear a certain way, and then it appears a different way in their resumes. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not qualified. They might just be. It just takes a little bit more finesse and kind of maneuvering, I guess, Google and whatnot, to learn certain wordings and phrases that people have in their resumes that may just be administrative experience or customer service and whatnot. So recruitment is very, very big where I work, and it entails a lot of things. I work for local government, so it entails a lot of things like unions and contracts, collective bargaining agreements and whatnot. So it takes a lot to make sure that we're following what we need to follow, but at the same time, we're following HR best practices and testing protocol and whatnot. So kind of to just resume, these are just some tips that I've kind of learned myself while I've been doing what I'm doing. My primary one, honestly, especially when it comes to testing, is learning how to explain our work to others as simple as possible. I don't know about my colleagues, but trying to explain content validity, which is what we use where I work, easier said than done. Or explaining how I set a cutoff, because I set a cutoff for each exam using standard setting procedures. I particularly use the Enghoff method. Explaining that is a whole ball game. And a lot of these people, like I said, they're unions, they're higher ups, that they want what they want, and you got to explain to them, no, that's not the correct way to do it, especially if you want a test that's valid and reliable. So like I said, I think that's very crucial. When developing different recruitment strategies that you're asked of, it's important to keep in mind the organizational culture and the budget of the area. Obviously, private sector as compared to public sector has very different budgets, and private tends to be a little bit more open-minded and willing to maybe do some strategies that the public sector may not. So it's very important to keep that in mind. And when it comes to testing in general, always go with the option that can be easily explained and is based on statistical data. Like I said, at the end of the day, I base whatever I do on my numbers, on the reliability of the exam itself, the test takers, my raters, my subject matter experts that came to me and said, this is what's important, this is not important. That's everything I base it. And obviously a job analysis, which is something else I also do, the job analysis, which is the foundation. And I know we all know what a job analysis is the foundation for any job in general. And that's obviously what I base our exams on. So at the end of the day, it's just making sure that is what you're going with if you're ever in doubt. Testing, funnily enough, when I was studying, when I was taking that class, I said, I do not want to go into this. It's not of my interest. And that's the only thing, that's the majority of what I've done during my career. So I guess just life saying, here you go. And very important, which I think my colleagues may agree with, always document everything. Making sure that if anything comes back to you, you can easily say, yes, I did tell you to follow this best practice, and here's the email to prove it. I think at least that's crucial. So thank you for your attention. I hope I'm within my time. I think I am, but yes.
Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. Excited to speak to you all. My name is Amal Hussain. I am actually an I-O out of Chicago. And I know that this is kind of a mixed group here, but I am obligated to give a shameless plug that I am the Executive Vice President of the Chicagoland I-O Psychologist Board. And if there's any Chicago folks on here who are not members, please reach out. We'd love to have you. So with that aside, let's start at the beginning, right? So I have kind of loved psychology since I took my first psychology class in high school and kind of figured that was what I wanted to do, but didn't have the whole plan planned out, as many of us, right? And so I, like Chantal, went to school for an applied psychology degree and had the whole clinical plan, I think as many of us do. And so my degree is from the University of Illinois, Chicago for applied psychology, and I do have a research background. And I say that because no matter what I've transitioned throughout my career, that research background is key, and it is a very, very transferable skill that it doesn't matter where you go. That's like a really fantastic thing to take with you, and that mindset will help no matter where you go. I say this to students who might think research is boring, as I once did. And so after college, I took a little bit of a breather and was deciding what I wanted to do. But as I mentioned, I was pretty sure I wanted to complete my clinical PhD. And so as you do, you start working in research. And so that's what I did for a couple years. I'll come back to ask, what that was. But then decided, okay, wait, this isn't for me, and stepped away to reassess for a little bit and found I-O as well. And then came back for grad school and completed that at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, which is now just the Chicago School, and completed my graduate degree in I-O psychology. And yeah, I've been a thriving I-O since then. So one fun fact about my grad program is that I did study abroad. That was a fantastic experience. I studied abroad in Johannesburg and in Cape Town. I did go with the ABA program, so a little bit different, but we did have some little business excursions there where I got my, lens in, but it was a fantastic experience to be out there and seeing kind of ABA and I-O in a different country and how it's approached. If you are a student on this call and you have the opportunity to study abroad, I highly, highly recommend you do that, because that will give you a really great lens as you put your degree to work when you leave school. And currently I serve on the Chicago City's Sister Cities International Durban Committee as a result of my love for South Africa. Just a little hook there. But so my professional background, right, as I mentioned, I started off in research. And so I have a couple of years of cognitive, really deep cognitive psychology research, positive psychology as well. I actually was at Martin Seligman himself, his lab, which was fantastic experience working on the original GRIT studies at the University of Pennsylvania. And then I moved into the clinical world and really focused on serious mental illness at the Temple University Collaborative on Community Inclusion, which is one of only, I want to say 26 or 27 research and rehabilitation training centers in the nation, which is really disappointing. We really need more. But it is a fantastic collaborative that does a lot of great work, but every study at the center, there was 8 at the time, every single one had a thread of community inclusion. I mean, it was called the Center on Community Inclusion. So as you can imagine, I did a lot of inclusion work while doing that. While, you know, many of us never had DEI in our titles, that is what I did. I worked with equity leaders and led a study on African Americans who kind of had a triple whammy, if you will, of discrimination for their race, for being a user, and for having a serious mental illness. So there was an intervention that we ran and tested for that study. We also had studies running at the Philadelphia County Prison System, to which I had full clearance into the system. So those, as you can imagine, are the ones that really, really need the help and do not get the help within the prison system. So it was really it was an experience, I'll just say, that really helps me in the corporate world today, if you can imagine, in terms of the different personalities that I encounter, right? And so with that, really loved it, but decided, you know what, let me take a breather before I do a whole PhD in this and figure out what might be a logical next step, because I don't know if this is it. And that's where I kind of reassessed a little bit, read up a little bit more on I-O, and figured that, you know what, this makes a lot more sense for my skill set. And so finished out my degree and I started with internships. And so I first worked in executive search in the beauty and retail industry and some CPG. So looking for VP and C-suite and above in those industries. Which is super interesting, as you can imagine, the beauty space. From there, I moved into market research. As I mentioned, I kind of never left that research behind. I moved into pharma and CPG market research at a boutique firm that kind of brought together and created this proprietary technique of using like psychological and psychoanalysis techniques in market research. So it was never like, oh, do you like this product? Why do you like it? It really went deeper into your motivations as a buyer and as a consumer. So really interesting stuff, but it was, I just kept raising my hand to do the I&D work there and to kind of build a culture committee and write their DEI vision statement. And so it really was evident that this is the space I wanted to go in, but there just wasn't space in a boutique firm. And so then started on the search and landed in a great place. I led global inclusion and diversity for Gallagher, which, if you're not familiar with, Gallagher is the world's second largest insurance broker. We do risk management, we do HR benefits consulting, we do basically anything and everything there is to do with insurance, whether that's the aviation industry, whether that's fine arts, whether that's a yacht, right? We do all of it. It's pretty all-inclusive. And so for Gallagher, I led, like I said, global inclusion and diversity. It has been a fantastic journey. I have been at Gallagher now for 4 years and have made so many wonderful strides. We had people doing I&D work in their different regions, in their, committees, but nobody was kind of doing it from the top. And I was brought in along with my manager at the time to kind of create a central framework. And we really built everything today that Gallagher has from ground up, whether that's the external facing website, whether that's gender transition guidelines that I wrote, right? So all of those kinds of things. And as of July, I have moved on from that position, still very much at Gallagher and really, really loving and thriving. I kind of felt like a fraud when Brianna asked me to speak here because I'm no longer in the DEI space, nor am I in HR, but I do have experience here. So so I've moved into marketing. I am now Assistant Vice President for Partnership Activation and Business Development. So I have taken over our West region partnerships that are our sports teams. So something like the San Diego Padres and the Utah Jazz is the place I play in now. And so really fantastic to be able to work really with our producers, so the ones actually brokering the deals and working on the 401k plans and all of that, right? Making sure that they have what they need and they're able to give our clients some fantastic experiences because of our relationships with these amazing teams. So that's what I get to do in my day job. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of just like values and passions and other things that I do, right? So I mentioned CHIOP, which is the Chicagoland I-O Psychologists Board. So we have a pretty active group here. We do lots of virtual events, which we open to the entire United States. We do, things for our members here on ground in terms of workshops, happy hours, you name it. So that's one big piece that I do in my free time. I also sit on the board of the Always Giving Back Foundation, which is local to Chicago. It's housed on the south side of Chicago. It is the foundational arm of USS, Unconquerable Security Solutions, which is the nation's largest Black-owned security firm, both cyber and physical. And the foundation is mission to help with financial literacy and break the vicious cycle of poverty, honestly, on that part of the city and kids in that area. So they get a fantastic experience with the foundation, whether that's through financial literacy courses or it's our summer business internship program. And because of my place at Gallagher, I'm able to bring those interns to our headquarters every year, and it's been a fantastic experience for them, for high schoolers in, kind of the worst of the worst areas in Chicago in terms of like violence and poverty, to be able to come to global headquarters of Rolling Meadows and see what we do out here and to learn about insurance and learn about other careers that nobody grows up thinking, oh, I'm going to be in insurance, right? So opening up their minds to that. And then the last thing is the Chicago Sister Cities, which I mentioned. So that's me in a nutshell. Did I miss anything that I was supposed to mention, Hannah? Amazing. Well, thank you all for listening.
That was great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Next, we have Mayra Salinas.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. So a little bit about my background and how I got started in the whole I-O and, getting my master's in that. So I went to Texas A&M. I originally thought I was going to be a biomedical engineer into chemistry and realized that was not going to be me. But I knew that I enjoyed psychology from when I did dual credit and attended a psychology course. So I switched my major to psychology with a minor in business. And, after that, I just kind of felt like that was, in general, something that I could do with business. I didn't know much about human resources at all, but I had classmates that would tell me that they wanted to go to HR or that they had internships in HR. And I regret not having an internship, but I also did not know much about internships back in the day because I was a first gen student. And now I wish I would have had an internship, and I also wish I would have studied abroad. So Chantal, Amal, I envy that because I wish I could have done that. So when I did that, I worked in a staffing firm when I came out of college and got some very fast-paced experience. And I was a staffing consultant. So I talked to a lot of people, and I enjoyed the aspect of being able to help people both find jobs and then helping the HR managers find the adequate talent for their companies. So moving forward, I actually was hired at UTMB, where I currently am now, in 2015, and I started as an HR business coordinator. And since then, because it'll be 10 years in December that I've been there, I've moved my way around. So if you're not familiar with UTMB, it is part of the UT system. We are University of Texas Medical Branch down in Galveston, but we have other campuses along the mainland areas, which is your League City, not so far as in Houston, but we have League City, Texas City, and all the mainland areas that are not just necessarily Galveston. So in my time here, I've been an HR business coordinator. I became a training specialist too. And during that role, I was primarily over new employee orientation. I then became an OD consultant and then an HR business partner, which is the current role that I sit in, but I will be transitioning into a new role in September, which will be more of a workforce dynamics consultant. So pretty much an HR business partner and an OD consultant mushed together, essentially. So I've had the ample opportunity to really, I was able to go through my master's program and really be able to apply some of those strategies and some of those learning theories into action. So currently as an HR business partner, some things that I really passionately align with is aligning HR strategies to business goals, leading change management efforts, supporting our organizational design and development. And then my favorite, which is kind of why I'm transitioning to the workforce dynamics, is the coaching leaders on how to build culture, manage performance, and grow their people. We are having a lot of change management. We have a whole new executive team, and with that comes a lot of changes, a lot of new people. So that I-O experience that I built and kind of learning has definitely played a big part into my work today. The culture and team dynamics is an everyday thing. We also know that we're also in a time where, it's hard to find talent and it's hard to compete sometimes. So we're getting different personalities in different departments. So being able to kind of coach leaders through different team dynamics. And not only that, I really do go into departments that I assist with and help them do focus groups. And if you're not familiar with appreciative inquiry, I do a lot of appreciative inquiry as well, to where we shift the mindset of what's going wrong, focusing on what's going wrong a lot, and really looking at what's going well and how can we apply that more into the things that are not. So how can we do a little bit of more of that, and more than anything, also accountability within the teams. So really leading change with intention is a huge one. So your change management courses will be big, especially in a change management focus area. So a lot of ADKAR model, a lot of Lewin change model are things that I currently had to dip into, and I have within my time here. And then overall, just really having that leadership development and coaching, because I think while I was always set into wanting to help people and work with people, I always wondered why people behave the way they did, why some teams thrive while others fall apart, and then why some leaders really inspire growth and others struggle in those areas. So while my plate is very full right now, I'm very appreciative because I am able to kind of reflect back to those things that I learned through my master's program and reapply them into my daily work life. So that's currently where I'm at. I mean, very excited for what's to come. We are a very OD focused HR business partner group. I recently, and I just got to brag on this. So we did a leadership development summit where we focused on healthy leaders, thriving teams. And we had a well-being survey that came out, and we just found out that a lot of our leaders were burnt out, as a lot of people are right now. And so one of the things that came along with that was that we wanted to kind of build up our regional hospitals leadership teams from supervisors and above. And we did a day full that I created and organized, and it was chaos because it was my first one, actually HR's first summit that we created, but it actually ran so smoothly, and the amount of positive feedback that we received from that, and being able to give leaders the aha moment of creating boundaries for themselves so that way they can lead their employees to seeing what that looks like, was just kind of like a magical moment. Like, you saw how motivated people were leaving that session. So those are the kind of things that get to play into, and I'll be diving into that a lot more as we start developing true buckets for not just leaders to be able to excel, but also those employees and high potential employees. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing so much, Mayra. I'm going to kick it over to Jean for our final sort of, presentation, and then we're going to do a little Q&A. We're going to be going to about 6:30 today, so we should have a good amount of time.
Hello, my name is Dr. Gene Holloway. I am in Austin, Texas currently. I'm born and raised in Southern California and have went into the Navy right after high school and got to travel the world. Ended up in Arizona where I did my bachelor's, master's, and then finished a PhD in I-O psychology. So hats off to my colleagues, the ones that presented. I'm just like cheering, connecting with some of them because it really just in the community of I-O, it's just really great to see what other people are doing. And if anything I can say to a student, get involved and connect with other people and support their work. That will definitely, so in my journey, I end up doing independent consulting and have worked also for the federal government. And now I work local government. So I always really like to stay busy. A lot of my work has been applied. And so I was doing multiculturalism back 12 years ago. And then when DEI really started jumping off, I was about 6 years ago, I really hit it really strong. I did a lot of things that I put some goals to, so I'll kind of briefly go through them. I did prepare a presentation, but with only 10 minutes, I think I'll just use the just of my time to kind of talk about my journey. And so the best way that kind of put me into I-O is that I was sitting in presentations and thinking, hey, I think I can do a better job than just people falling asleep, or I really wanted to make a difference in how they were presenting training. And then so I found out that the person who was doing the training had a PhD, and I was like, so what would I get it in? And then I did some research, and it was about 8 years ago, and I really discovered like, hey, I-O was the best combination of psychology and also studying businesses and then helping them to scale or helping them to treat their employees better. So that began my journey of thinking, what would I research? So my study was based on, I worked at the federal government at the time. So I looked at leadership, a style like authentic leadership and job satisfaction. Well, in the federal government, job satisfaction was pretty low. But I really became acquainted with the different federal agencies who actually did surveys to their employees. And then why was it that way? What change were they going to make? And so after completing my study, I continued to push to get I-O out in like to smaller businesses and organizations. And that has been my passion. So that's allowed me to work with as big as companies as NASA and doing DEI at the highest level. And it was exciting helping them to really write DEI concepts in their performance plans. But then, as you may know, there's been a huge shift politically that kind of died away from that. So I was a part of seeing that kind of have an impact. And I think that impacted many people in the field. But being as an I-O, my focus has always been on using science to be able to better understand the workplace and improve leadership. And so I was able to continue to transition, even though the organizations I was working from kind of deviated from DEI, it's still alive. There's companies that are still on board with it. But I would say it's definitely the focus. My lens has always been a positive type of lens of, hey, not just who's not represented or who's getting what, but how can we change the culture of an organization and make it very positive, driven on success, and what does success look like at each level? And then when we have policies or norms or concepts in our organization that are hindering women or certain people, and that we need to deal with it. And so that kind of led me to go into HR. And I do that in my full-time work. I work as a director of organizational culture in Travis County, which is in Austin. Awesome job. They've never had that. Texas is a little bit different in that. So I was pretty excited for them to do that. But the work is not political. It's based on using science and looking at data analytics and bringing all these people together. And it's just been amazing. At the same time, I really formed a side business of like helping everyday people who get into I-O to think about, do consulting and helping mom and pops and small businesses with what you learn, not just going after the job, but thinking about ownership and being a leader and being a business owner. No one really taught me that. I had to learn that along the way. It has tremendously made a major impact on how I've experienced being I-O, being a minority, and being able to run a business and be extremely successful. And it did not take a lot of things. It just took really being focused on where my strengths was, get some coaching, and then actually applying it. And it's been amazing. I would say I would like to encourage students also, because I did run a nonprofit for about 3 years. People were like, how are you going to do that and an LLC and work for some full time? I was like, watch me. And so this generation coming up really has that attitude too. It's just applying it in the right area. I learned a lot in those 3 years. It was extremely hard running a nonprofit, but it really helped me to balance my heart versus the business side LLC, and really knowing how do you charge, how do you actually value the work that you do. So on the applied side, it was not always easy. It was easy being an employee. I can apply science, but one thing I really had to become good at is understanding in a small pitch, what is the value of what I'm delivering to this organization? Where are they bleeding at? And make sure it matches. So I went from 12-page proposals to 2 pages, to getting straight to the point, deal with the executives and know what their language is, and then win the contract, get the opportunity to practice your craft. Because if you don't do that, you might as well just stay and work for someone. So I made it uncomfortable for myself, but it really helped me to inspire a lot of other colleagues who wanted to do some independent work. And then I just kind of wrote down all the ins and outs you needed, and understand, like, hey, when you run a business, you have the opportunity to have such wealth and things that others who are running businesses that you work for. So why not understand that when you're in the beginning of your career? It doesn't mean you're going to go right into it, but that is something that you should be getting mentorship. You should be learning about owning your own LLC, working for yourself, and still applying those principles that you learn. Last thing I say, in one of my stints when I worked for a high-tech, very well-known consultancy firm, I noticed that, hey, there was a lot of money that went forth to doing the same work that we do as IOs. And I was like, wait a minute, if I did that independent work, that can go to my LLC and I get to practice my craft. So that really made a change in the shift the way I do things. Hey, I'm not the best fit for every client, but what I did get good at is understanding certain ways that I solve problems and work with clients work best for certain prospects. And so my goal in independent work was to find the problems that needed what I could do. And that kept me very, very busy. If I had time, I would go over the list of the companies that I work with on the applied side. And then lastly, I would say to our students is finding a mentorship, looking at those who've spoken here today. If someone speaks to you, reach out to them, because that is how you'll many times be able to get into employment opportunities, especially with today's competing market. And it also may be something that you're going to use down the line to leverage opportunities to go into different fields of IO Psych. And so the way that I got to where I am today and being a director in organizational culture, it was not an easy way to get there, but I continue to network and continue to solve problems to where when it came down to them needing and interviewing, it was like I was exactly what was needed. So what would have happened if I wouldn't have applied myself to different volunteer sometimes opportunities that led to paid opportunities and to valuing myself as a organizational consultant? So I think I'm at my time. My name is Dr. Gene Holloway. I'm here for everyone, and I'm excited to be able to present today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gene. That was very insightful, and I appreciate you keeping it concise, so we have plenty of time for questions. So we're going to start the Q&A. Feel free to raise your hand in Teams or type questions in the chat. I think I saw Tracy already had a question. You want to go ahead, Tracy?
That was actually an accident. My apologies, but I would love to ask a question. It's nice to meet you all today. I thank you for taking time to come and speak with us. What was the moment that, if you have experienced any kind of imposter syndrome with IO, what was the moment that it clicked for you that you're doing the thing? Like, I'm doing this. And that could go for either of the four of you.
I'll go. So I remember I was a college professor working as like one of the youngest African-American psychology teachers at the college, and I was doing really great. And I remember seeing that the advisement had issues, and I remember telling some of my colleagues, is anyone going to say anything about this? And they were like, yeah, but they're not going to do anything. I was like, well, I'm going to approach the dean and I'm going to talk to him about some of these issues I see in advisement. Oh, sorry, that was my timer for my time. And I remember that he allowed me to put a proposal together. And it was that years ago that really started that like journey to like understanding science and understanding research and being able to apply it in the work setting. And then I just realized that people will actually listen, right? And so I had to get over me And so I have a fear of rejection. And so I did a lot of work before getting to be very successful of like dealing with what that means to me. And as I worked through that, it really helped me to like focus on here's the problem, help people to see the problem clearly, help them to see what money they're going to put towards the problem, and then be the person to do the science. So that helped me to overcome my thoughts about negativity about myself. So
Thank you.
I have one for you too, Tracy. This is something I'm sorry to tell you, it's going to continue to be there. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. It's going to come in waves, but it's not a bad thing. It means that you really care about what it is that you're going to be doing and that you want to do the best, all right? And you want to put your best foot forward. So it's not comfortable, but it's okay because you need to learn to, number one, advocate for yourself and to be confident that, you know what, I know my stuff. I've done X, Y, Z. So I do belong in this room. So I preface with that, and my moment, because you asked for a moment, and one thing came into my mind was, actually it's been a couple years now that this has happened, but and this is public, I mean, you can look this up, but Gallagher is the sole sponsor of Women's World Rugby at the global level. And when we were having those talks of kicking off those discussions, as you can imagine, something at that scale is the C-suite, and the C-suite of World Rugby, the CEO of World Rugby, Sally Horrocks, and our influencer players who may have been involved, right? They were kind of part of that. So she was there, and the partner organization helping, kind of external partner helping to broker this deal, all C-suite. And I was asked to be in that boardroom. And definitely it was a moment of, okay, first of all, why? But also, I even, had thanked one of the people that asked me to be there. And she's like, no, of course, I wanted your opinion because this is a women's initiative. I wanted you in the room. And so, taking it with grace when you can. And, you're there because you belong to be there. And I think imposter syndrome sucks, but sit with it and push it out.
Both very beautiful answers. Thank you.
I have a question. First of all, thank you all so much for your presentations. Dr. Holloway, so nice to see you here. So my question is actually for you, Dr. Holloway. So you went from from being like an academic, right? And all of these things to starting your own business. So what was that transition like for you? What were some of the steps that you took to prepare yourself, to make that transition? And what are some of the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I really believe this, that sometimes setbacks and things that you go through can really propel and help you. And many times people, if they're a minority or woman, there's things that they have endured that as they get the knowledge and information training, and you combine that together, can be very explosive and be amazing. And so I think that's kind of what helped me, as far as I had some tough times when I was in the federal system as trying to progress. And I remember saying, you know what, I'm going to do this my own. And I think it was like 2019 is when I had astronomical growth. It was just like amazing. And it's because I was really focused. And the key thing that I think, if you're wanting to help businesses, I help my uncles, relatives, I would help anyone using my I-O skills, right? I made it a very intentional to use these skills to help solve problems. And then what I realized is that I'm a high extrovert. So I reached out to people. I talk to people all the time. And the ones that will come in my space and give me an opportunity, I actually served them. And it just took that heart to work with them to help them better understand their problem. And from that, I began to put piece by piece by piece until it became very clear to me, hey, not only are you starting your LLC, but you're going to, one thing I love by being the business owner is that I can go based on someone's budget. I can go based on, so some organizations can pay me extremely well. And that was exciting, right? Because we all want to get paid well. But the one that could only pay me $300-400, I still gave them the same amount of service as an I-O, and it was excellent. And I think those type of things really helped me to grow in my confidence and understand the waves of business and the flow of it. It also did help is that I was willing to work full time and then work full time for myself. I think that really helped me to build that stamina and that ability to go through the waves of being a business owner, because it's not always sunshine. There's a lot of hard stuff. And lastly, I would say is you never like rejection. There's more no's than yeses. And even in business, when a business is very successful, it took them a while to get there. And when we come on board, we may come on board when it's very successful. But the people there from the beginning really realized how hard it was. So I would just say, be prepared to go through the no's and to take that. That's going to help you to be stronger, and just do your craft. Do what you have went to get training for and give that to people that you serve. The rewards will come always. That was been my mentality, and it's always served me well.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I want to introduce myself. My name is Iman, and I do want to say that every one of your perspective and how you became where you are today is very influential. I have no background in I/O, at least not just yet, since I'm starting to go into my master's program this fall, or I guess in 2 weeks. Um, Seeing where you are today and hearing your stories, how you landed there, I do have a question for each and every one of you panelists specifically. I just think your honest feedback and all this is very helpful. With Chantal, I think I'm sorry if I didn't say your name right. Is it Chantal?
You're good, Chantal. It's fine. You're good.
I came in halfway through your presentation and I caught on the job analysts part, or I guess the hiring assessment part, and I'm going into my first semester as a job analyst course, and I have no idea what that entails, and I'm curious to know how much of what you've learned you can incorporate in your job. For Amal, I am floored by your background in research, and I could imagine how much of that helped you understand in the world that you are in psychology, since there are so many different branches. And just wondering, what does it take for someone to break into that industry? And I mean, I could imagine carrying that on all the way through and through could really put a strong background in I/O in all sense, but just research in of itself, I'm just curious how one could start that journey. Mayra, I also really love hearing your growth in what you do. You basically gave us all hope from starting small and just growing to something huge, especially with UTMB. I know it is such an honor role to be a part of. And so just curious to know from your perspective, what does it take for you to shift your career, and if there are any difference from where you started as far as staffing consultant all the way today as an HR business partner. And lastly, um, I have a question for Dr. Jean. Having a business of your own is challenging, I can imagine. And I know, learning from your experience with different clients and picking up on the challenges quickly on your feet, are there any particular certificates or programs that you keep yourself up to date, especially when it comes to continuous education? And if so, what would that be?
I guess let me start. So honestly, every time you take a class in I/O, like I said, there's the assessment class. There's even a class on, at least I did, on adults and retirement. That's a whole nother ballgame too when it comes to succession planning, which I also have dealt with in some way or another. So when it comes specifically to testing and everything you learn in testing and assessment development, you will need it all. Trust me. You already realize you will need it all. Especially in my case, when you work in local government, when there are these higher ups who seem to know more than you do about something, you're the one who studied and you're the one who's the expert on it. It is very important to be confident in what you're saying. Know what you're saying before you're going to say it, because they will try to get their own way when you know at the end of the day, this is the right way to do things in order to do the job well. Everything is good and that there's no issues, there's no liabilities, no legal repercussions or anything of the sort. But especially when it comes to job analysis, at the end of the day, that's your basis. For everything, at least I do, that's the basis, a job analysis. You can, for more information, you can always contact me. We can definitely talk about it. It's a lot, honestly. I think my colleagues can agree that what we learn in school, honestly, does not really develop the way one would think it once you're actually in a company or in a career. But obviously, there's always room to grow within what we do, I-O. So look at them all, and definitely that's like you said, a lot of research, a lot of experience. Dr. Holloway and Mayra as well. So that's the answer to my question.
I can't wait. I heard a lot of great things about that topic, so I'll definitely reach out to you and tell you more of what I found.
All right, Iman. So for me, I think one of the things that's helped me kind of maneuver and continue to grow at UTMB is the continued eagerness to continue learning. And going back to the imposter syndrome, it was really hard being the youngest in the department. And I will vividly remember when a manager or director, we were having a focus group and a training regarding her staff dynamics. And I was scheduled for her area, and she said no, she wanted somebody that had more experience. And so the more experienced consultant said, absolutely not, you're coming along with me and you're going to lead the presentation. So having that advocate speak up for me and allow me to give me that space to really showcase what I've learned and my experience was just what I needed to be able to feel comfortable and knowing that I can be the youngest in the room and still stand on business and still know, that I know this information and I'm helping you in your area. So I think if any advice I could give you is continue to learn, continue to develop yourself. And, it can be certifications, it can be small skills, but just continue that learning and just, go for that opportunity, have a mentor. Like Dr. Holloway had mentioned, I feel like mentorship has definitely helped me and shaped me to grow into the professional that I am now. So definitely just don't stop and keep going. And I'm happy to connect. So definitely y'all find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to always share any kind of experience, especially, walking into a room when you are the youngest and still showing that you can and you know what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Basically, find a window of opportunity and take it. Don't look back.
Iman, you're going to have to remind me of my question. Was it
Research.
how it
It's just-
translates?
I mean, yeah, everything about your perspective and research and how you're able to incorporate that in your line of work today. I mean, starting as an intern and just doing it on the side, and now I'm not sure how much of research you're involved in your line of work, but I could imagine that exposure did put you in a really good position today.
Yeah, so good question. No, but that is it's a skill, right? It's a really important
Yeah.
skill to help you back up anything that you might be presenting, right? So if you're going to present an initiative and you have the research backing of why this has worked in the past and what other things are similar and what the data says, that's a much stronger case than, oh, I think we should do this, it will be fun for the employees, right? And so anything that we approached in terms of inclusion initiatives, we made sure that I kind of looked in the back end and made sure that there was good data to support things. We never ever follow the trends here. We do things that are something that can be implemented and stay long term. We, like I said, don't go over the buzzwords. And so, yeah, it's very important for that reason. And even today, right, in this new marketing role, I'm working with producers in very different sectors of insurance. And so it is on me to kind of understand their business. So that is something that, of course, is going to take some research. I'm going to have to read up on personal lines and food and agriculture, right? And so, yeah, that's a skill set that really never leaves you. And I mean, even if you're planning a wedding, you need the research skills, right? So,
Yes.
always something great to hone in on, I think.
Yeah, that's a skill I still today try to break into. I don't know, taking right now statistics class may not be it could be a core of what I look forward to do tomorrow, but a little intimidated by it simply because I haven't done it before. But hearing your perspective really is eye-opening. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm last. So on the note about statistics, I remember I thought I could not. I was afraid of math and math and higher level math, but going into the military, when I got out of the military after doing my 4 active years, I was determined. And what it really did taught me is that have a tenacity and to sit in the front, to ask questions. And then I also learned something that helped me along my master's and my PhD when it came to math, is I'd always let that professor know that I am going to pass your class. I'm going to do everything it takes. And my goal is to learn the tricks, the things I need to learn. And so I learned most of the stuff from actually students that were like really great at math, and they had learned certain tricks that I didn't know along the way, like do things this way. And as an adult learning, I needed to grasp the concept, and it needed to be meaningful to me. And I embraced some of that, and that helped me to get to statistics. And then having to do a PhD that was quantitative, I had to learn again and work with other people to really understand what I was presenting. All of that stuff, so painful, wanted to give up many times, but it helped me to be where I'm at today. So I would tell someone, just because things happen in life and it's difficult, don't give up. You'll make it. Regarding running a business, I always wanted to own a business or to, I tried to sell candles. I tried to do lots of stuff along the way in my early professional life. I sucked at it. I was terrible. They just weren't the right thing. But when I became trained in I/O, I realized I could actually go back to these different industries I've worked in, to serve and help them. And actually, hey, you guys want to deal with this systemic issue. Let's look at it from all these angles. Let's look at best practice. And so all that did was just really help me to like, okay, now I can really convince them to let me help them. And all it took was that 1 or 2 times to where I was just like, hey, this is not as hard as it is. Just practice the science. And it was amazing. So running a business is difficult, but at the same time, it's all of you apply to it. And so there's a lot of pride that goes into it. And when you really see you're making a difference, that can be addictive. Like that to me, what matters the most. So I would encourage you, if you're ever thinking of doing that, get a great mentor, be willing to serve someone else's work, and eventually you become to have vision for the work that you're going to do in the future. I've done all of that to be where I'm at today.
Wow. I could tell you for sure. It'll probably take me a long time to get there, but I do wish you nothing but great success in your future.
Thank you.
Next, we have Favor and then Catherine.
Hello, thank you so much for speaking. I really resonated with each and every one of your stories on how you got into I/O and your career. So right now I have started an internship and currently also looking for mentorship. And I was just curious about if you had any advice or a conversation from a mentor or a mentor figure that has stuck with you and helped shape your journey.
I know we're running close to time, but I would say, whether it be Amal or Mayra or anyone, like find someone who's like in the field you want to go to and have the courage to say, hey, I'm in class. I would love a mentorship, because many times people, when we're in the field, we want to give back and help. And that has opened doors for me. But I've constantly told my students to do that as well. And those who did it, usually it landed in something very successful and very meaningful. So that's what I would encourage you to do immediately. It doesn't cost nothing to do that, but be sincere and honest. And there's a reason why you want to ask that person, hey, you want to go into research? They're in the research. Have that connection. And when we see that real connection, it's easy to mentor someone.
And I think my tip would be not to be afraid to ask. If you have somebody that you really do admire and you're like, I could really learn and benefit from this person, just ask. My mentor is my vice president of HR. And I can tell you, when I asked her, I said, I know you're so busy, so don't feel obligated to say yes. But now it's funny because I know her as my mentor, and it's a complete different relationship most of the time than her employee. And so I get to see bits and pieces of her that a lot of people don't. But I think the most rewarding thing that I've gotten, aside from learning a lot from her and how she's gotten to where she is in her career, is that I hear from her that these mentorship meetings mean so much to her because she's also learning so much about herself and about me. So it also gives a different perspective of, as you're asking these questions, you're really making these people that are sometimes, they're so up in their career and sometimes it can be autopilot. It makes them really think about how they handle certain situations. So I think that's my favorite part. But definitely don't be afraid to ask, even if you think that their plate's overloaded. I think just as anybody, being a mentor you give so much back. It's just so rewarding that you find the time for it.
Thank you.
Okay, so nice to meet you, everybody, and really enjoyed the conversation so far. And I did start my psychology journey in South Africa, in Cape Town, and then moved to the USA. And as I started the journey, I was headed for counseling psychology, then discovered I-O psychology, and I was like, this is what I want to do. But having relocated in between and started the I-O psychology here in the USA, it's been so difficult to make a way for myself, and I feel so stuck. I feel directionless because I did a master's online. So I did an online program, never got to be in contact with others, never attended any conference, and completed this master's, and I'm sitting with it. I am currently working in global mobility, which is a division of HR, but I feel so stuck. I feel like, where to now? Who do I reach out to? And I'm glad you were talking about the mentorship, but it's just difficult to reach out to somebody online and say, hey, can you be my mentor because you do what I like or things that I enjoy? Any advice on that, having been an online student and completed the master's? Because I've also found it a challenge to try and, determine direction for a PhD, because I'm like, where am I rushing to? I don't even know what I'm interested in anymore. Do I want to do change management? What do I want to do? So I don't know if anybody has some insight and input to help with that.
If I can jump in here with, I think the most important thing, I mean, you're here, right? This is super important, is to be a part of your local I-O groups. And of course, PSYOP. If you can, think about attending PSYOP next year, I think that's really, really important. It's going to be that last week of April in New Orleans. But that's where you'll really get to meet others on ground that, do this work, and they're from all over the world. But that's PSYOP as a whole, but then your local I-O groups are really, really key in this. I mean, obviously I'm speaking on behalf of Chicago, but I know there is a Houston I-O group as well, beyond this one, that does in-person happy hours, and that's something you should totally look into too, because then you can meet people on ground, and make those connections and learn from one another. And I'm sure that you know this, but I'll just say it for the benefit of the group. It's very rare. I don't even know, 1%, 3%. I don't know. Colleagues can jump in here, but nobody gets hired as I-O psychologist. That's none of our titles. So don't look for that job because you won't find it. I think literally only FedEx has that job, and maybe a couple others within like the federal government. So there's so many different titles and whatnot that you could be. So that's a different thing. Like if you're feeling lost and confused for that reason, find your skill set and look for jobs in that kind of region of titles, if you will. But yeah, local I-O groups, super important here.
Okay. I'm in Georgia, and I don't know if there's a good one in Georgia. I am part of it, but I don't see much activity. There's always webinars and stuff, but not in person.
Area?
Georgia, Atlanta
area. Let me look. I do have the list of the local groups. I can communicate with you offline.
Sure, thank you.
Yep.
Out of respect for time, I'm going to have Chantal ask her a question. But if any of our panelists need to hop off, you're totally welcome to do that. Same to our attendees. And if you're comfortable with it, you can share your email address in the chat and we can have questions coordinate that way. Go ahead, Chantal.
Thanks, Hannah. I appreciate that. So my question is directed towards Dr. Holloway, because I heard you say something that's pretty relevant to where I'm at regarding my career. So just for background, I am in HR. My entire career has been HR, and I'm finding myself in a place where I'm trying to get more into the strategic side of things. And you talked about in your consulting career, just understanding the language and speaking the language of executives and leadership that you come across. So I wondered if you had any like strategy, tips, tidbits, resources on what it has looked like for you to learn that. Any like verbal, nonverbal cues, books, whatever it is look like for you to navigate that space and become good at it. You know, if you have anything to share, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I definitely would say reach out to me. I definitely have some things to share regarding that.
Okay.
I got some coaching. It's helpful to me. I love to share that with people. And then it's just being willing to walk with people through that journey. There's no easy way around it. You really have to learn this by going in, pitching what didn't work. And I have a strategy that I use when I'm working with executives versus working with just regular, people on the street or different organizations. And so it's taken me time to develop that. I would be more than happy to share that with you. So reach out to me. I'd love to set up a time to chat.
Will do. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. We've noticed how those conversations about imposter syndrome and mentorship, they kind of inevitably come up during these kind of sessions. And we do really appreciate the honesty and the humility from our panelists. The goal of these really is to highlight what real people look like in real I/O jobs. So we really do appreciate your input. As a reminder, we have same time next week, August 11th. We have our next panel session on assessment and selection. And with that, I'll pass it on to Kale in case he has any closing notes, but truly thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, just want to thank you guys all again for coming, and definitely for our panelists. That was wonderful. A common thread that I saw in all of your presentation was sort of the sales aspect, being able to sell I/O, even if that's not what it's called, to the, whoever the stakeholder may be, but, being able to speak their language and communicate the value. And I think you guys gave a lot of good examples on, different ways to do this. Because like you said, Amal, no one actually is an I/O psychologist by trade. They're called all kinds of different things. So especially for students and stuff, that's something that I think you need to keep close to heart, that you can learn from a lot of people who aren't necessarily like practicing I/Os. But thank you guys so much for coming.